The ever-present mist closes in as we prepare to leave Unalaska and head east. At one of the 2 fuel docks in town, we take on 1,000 gallons of diesel. They tell us they dispense 1 million gallons per week at this facility. We head for the offshore Baby Islands to see whiskered auklets, found only here or in the furthest reaches of the Aleutian Islands. Venture is buffeted by strong currents and visibility is limited. Bizarre shapes loom out of the gloom. The vapors that hang in the air are not just mist, but steam arising from the shore of Hot Springs Bay, where we anchor for the night. We take the small tender to the black volcanic shore, from which steam arises. Chris measures the temperature of the sand using an infrared thermometer. It reads 138 degrees Fahrenheit. Unknown to us, we're being watched from the dense vegetation lining the shore. This fox exhibits more curiosity than fear, which is a pleasant change. The volcanic sand is strewn with flotsam and jetsam. It is really quite surprising what fetches up on the beach, while Venture swings at her anchor. When we attempt to cross Unimak Pass, the combination of the strong southerly wind and opposing current produces turbulent seas. We are in no hurry, and we turn back to await better conditions. The following day the weather improves and we try again. We pass along the northern Bering Sea shore of Unimak Island, whose magnificent volcanoes reach above our heads into the sky. We await a rising tide before attempting to navigate through Unalaska Strait. Navigating the shallows at its northern end means paying close attention to the markers. The channel narrows in the south, at the location of the small town of False Pass on Unimak Island. Across the strait, a few, mostly derelict structures cling to the green slopes forming the tip of the Alaskan peninsula. Continuing east, we meet the research vessel Qualifier en route to Nome. The weather turns menacing, and the wreck of a grounded fishboat is a reminder that this is no place for the unwary. We visit King Cove, another small town dependent entirely on fishing. The harbour is almost deserted when we arrive, as the fishing fleet takes advantage of a scheduled opening. Not required when at sea, fenders and lines remain on the docks. Overnight the fleet returns, and once again the harbour is filled with boats. We go next to Captain's Harbour, where, to our surprise, we find 2 sailing yachts already at anchor. We are unused to sharing an anchorage with another boat. We more venture well away so as not to intrude, but launch the tender to pay them a visit. Orca has a crew from Germany and Sweden, and Santana from Holland. We learn that they have both reached here from northern Europe by way of the Straits of Magellan and the South Pacific. Along the shore we see a pair of eagles and this family of bears. We invite the crews on the yachts for dinner aboard Venture. The wind is gusting to 40 knots, and as we have the more powerful tender, Chris runs the gauntlet to collect our guests. The conditions make for a rough ride. We enjoy a pleasant evening on board. The plotter shows how much Venture swings to her anchor overnight. At dawn, the winds continue unabated. Keeping the bow aligned with the chain while retrieving the anchor is quite a challenge. Once underway, we pass a large barge being towed by a tiny tug with supplies for Unalaska. Our next anchorage is Dolgoy Harbour, overlooked by Pavlov volcano and its associated peaks. From there we take a look at Canoe Bay, where, at midnight and with no fanfare, an overcast and rainy day blossoms into a rose-pink and flaming sunset. Venture's electronic screens clearly show the narrow entrance which needs to be navigated at slack tide. We continue east. We are treated to views of Pavlov volcano, and wonderful cloudscapes. The southern tip of Unga Island features towering cliffs. This is a land forged in fire, with shapes and colors that reflect its violent volcanic past. We visit groups of offshore rocks. Sea lion rocks are a haul-out for stellar sea lions, whose numbers have dropped precipitously in recent years. We see one trapped in a chokehold necklace of carelessly discarded garbage. We later report this finding to the authorities in Sand Point. The Kenai's basalt columns give rise to towering pinnacles and unique rock formations.
Oh wow, it's a big hole. See the hole there?
Yeah, they're on the further island.
Yeah.
And look at it's full of birds.
We are now in the Shu Megan Islands, named after Nikita Shu Megan, a Russian sailor who died on August the 29th, 1741. The devastating oil spill from the Exxon Valdez reached within just a few miles of here, to approximately where the name Shu Megan appears on this map. We anchor in Pirate's Trace on Nagai Island. Flocks of seabirds dive in waters rich with fish. The islands appear to float on glass. We later meet a fisherman who tells us he's never seen such conditions in 40 years. The calm continues as we visit Haystacks, a rugged group of rocks home to millions of birds. Tufted puffins abound along this coast. They duck dive as you approach, scoot past with frantic wing beats, and are almost impossible to photograph. Using the tender, we tour the rocks at the entrance to Delaroff Harbour on Unga Island. There has to be some special mud in this location that attracts these flocks of gulls, which vanish abruptly whenever a hawk appears overhead. We visit the abandoned town of Unga. Leaving Venture anchored beyond the rocky headland, we take the tender ashore and are greeted by a curious river otter. We follow the remains of the wooden path and walk among the ruins. It is sad to see the decay of a once prosperous town. This is a photo of the Apollo gold mine, which peaked in 1904. Most inhabitants moved to Sand Point on nearby Popoff Island, a few miles away. The last family left in 1969. We anchor in Bariloche Bay, also on Unga Island, where there is an abandoned cannery. We find a sea star clinging to the chain when we haul in the anchor. We now revisit Sand Point, having previously spent time here on our outbound trip. Again, the harbour is full of fishing boats. Understandably, being the day before the 4th of July, there is no fish opening. We are surprised to see so many cruising boats. There are Orca and Santana we have already met, a Nordhaven 46 called Four Seasons, based in Seward. Let's Go is a sailboat which has sailed up the Aleutian chain from Japan. Another sailboat, Rose, is on the last leg of a world circumnavigation before returning to her home port of Unalaska. On the workboat side there is Seymour, built in 1913 and still fishing with her Polish captain. Our next guest, Steve, is joining us here, but the stunning weather we have enjoyed abruptly changes, and for 3 days flights from Anchorage are delayed due to poor visibility, driving rain and strong winds. We have time to meet with our fellow cruisers and visit local restaurants with cute decor. The 4th of July parade consists mostly of tastefully decorated kids' bikes. I visit the old Russian graveyard where colorful wildflowers and a sea of white daisies dance in the wind. At last the weather relents, Steve arrives, and we continue on our journey to explore Kodiak Island and beyond.